Also, we know all the cons are going on at the top because of the money con. The whole racket of this con of money has been going on for an awful long time. And we're trained just to accept it, and it's too complex for us to understand. Well, it's for simple mathematics, and it's a con game, but it's dressed up as a science. It's a con game, folks, and it really is the biggest con there is. But it's not enough, you see. They want to go into a new system too, to tax you on energy and carbon taxes personally, and so on. And the big con to do it too is the global warming scare, which has turned into the coming ice age scare. Which they also brought out back in the 60s. It was going to be the ice age then, and they changed their minds, and now it's back to the ice age. But regardless, you see, we're causing it all, they claim. Even though we've had many ice ages long before man was on the planet, that doesn't matter, you see. I guess the Earth was rehearsing or something. But it says EU policy, European policy on climate change is right, even if science was wrong, says the Commissioner. So their policy on climate change is right, even if their science is wrong. Right? This is what you're supposed to put up with today. Regardless of whether or not scientists are wrong on global warming, the European Union is pursuing the correct energy policies, even if they lead to higher prices. Europe's climate commissioner has said, well, the whole thing is to gouge you all and to get every spare penny off you folks. They've said that before, to bring us into austerity is to make you pay maybe 10, 20 times as much for, say, electricity, gas, and gasoline and so on, or oil to heat yourself in the winter. All these things, you're going to pay an awful lot more and get a lot less, and it's going to bring you all into austerity. And this is all part of the global warming nonsense too, and carbon taxes, energy taxes. So how can you deal with people like this? I mean, these are tyrants. The EU policy on climate change is right, even if the science is wrong. You know, if it's not the science that they're going by, what are they going by? Some you know, is some seer somewhere that tells them all this thing that from beyond, you know? As is Connie Hedegaard's comments come as United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change is expected to admit that previous scientific predictions for global warming and the effects of carbon emissions have been proven to be inaccurate. And that came out today. It won't matter. But this told us that. It won't matter that they're wrong. You're getting it anyway. You always get the shaft. Back with more after this.
You're listening to the Republic Broadcasting Network. Because you can handle the truth.
Hi folks, we're back cutting through the matrix, reading an article about Connie Hedegaard at the United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, who basically said that regardless of whether or not scientists are wrong on global warming, the European Union is pursuing the correct energy policies, even if they lead to higher prices. She's the climate commissioner. And she was wanting to say that 30 years from now, science came back and said, wow, we were mistaken then. Now we have some new information, so we think it's something else that's causing climate change. Well, there's always been climate change, you know. It says in a world with 9 billion people, even 10 billion in the middle of this century, and there won't be, by the way, because we're going down. All the first world countries have been plummeting. It wasn't for immigration. And that's what they tell us, the mainstream and your governments too. They say we need more and more immigration because the folk in the first world countries have been awfully good and haven't had any children. So it says, let's say that science some decades from now said we were wrong. It was not about climate change. Gouging you, that is, and giving you carbon taxes and all. Would it not in any case have been good to do many of the things you have to do in order to combat climate change if it existed? So let's do it all even though it doesn't exist. And this person's in charge. She's a commissioner on the panel on climate change. You understand, these folk have all sworn allegiance to a different agenda. A completely different agenda, folks. The same one that H.G. Wells talked about and was on. A completely different agenda. And also this article 2 came out, and it says, Harris, it says, new report counters climate change scare. Halloween comes a month earlier this year with September 27th release of the next big UN climate change report, innocuously entitled Working Group 1, the Physical Science Basis, the fifth assessment report of the UN Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It doesn't sound scary, it says, but it is certain to provide endless fodder for doomsday coverage by media the world over. That is its purpose, of course, to convince the press to frighten the people so that they pressure governments into multi-billion-dollar climate change plans. The science is settled, they say. The IPCC and climate activists will tell us it is past time for action. The IPCC could not conclude anything else. UN climate change activities must adhere to the doctrine laid down in 1992 by the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. At that year, Rio Summit, again a private organization, Maurice Strong, virtually all national leaders endorsed the FCCC proclamation that humanity must work to accomplish a sterilization of greenhouse gas concentrations in the atmosphere at a level that would prevent dangerous anthropogenic interference with the climate system. That was 21 years ago, and even today no one knows what, if any, greenhouse gas level would cause climate change problems. It is immaterial. The Climate Change Express left the station long ago. So in the 2 decades since Rio, the UN has done what you would expect a well-funded, unelected bureaucracy to do when put in charge of solving a problem. They convened huge international conferences in exotic locations to orchestrate climate treaties. They created global warming and alternative energy maps for the world to follow. They designed strategies to monitor and enforce countries' compliance with treaty obligations. And of course, the United Nations will run the developing nations' $100 billion green fund. It says no matter what science and observational evidence actually tells us, it's not realistic to expect one part of the United Nations, which is the IPCC in this case, to conclude that the problem other parts of the organization has been pushing the world to solve may not actually exist. So again, you're dealing with, these are social activists with a political agenda, folks. And it's outside. It's not left-wing or right-wing, folks. It's totalitarian. That's the goal. The stupid humans can't manage themselves, and they must have massive government agencies to manage every single one of you from birth to death. And fleece you all the way. Because you're sheep, you see. And they have no respect for you at all. None whatsoever. They're authoritarian. And in this article 2, a science-based rebuttal to global warming alarmism. That's not a bad article 2. It says in September 23rd, Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change scheduled to release the first portion of its fifth assessment report and so on. And today, 193 of the 194 national heads of state say they believe humans are causing dangerous climate change. The IPCC of the United Nations has been remarkably successful in convincing the majority of the world that greenhouse gas emissions must be drastically curtailed for humanity to prosper. And it gives you a bit of history and so on all the subsidies and taxes that they claim and grants that they get and so on. It says, but a counterposition was developing. In 2007, the Global Warming Petition Project published a list of more than 31,000 scientists, including more than 9,000 PhDs, who stated there is no convincing scientific evidence that human release of carbon dioxide, methane, or other greenhouse gases is causing or will in the foreseeable future cause catastrophic heating of the Earth's atmosphere and disruption of the Earth's climate. So much for consensus, eh? At the same time, an effort was underway to provide a credible scientific counter to the alarming assertions of the IPCC. So this is a social agenda that's on the way under a guise of saving us all. And it's only one part of the big social agenda, folks. One big part, mind you.